Okay, let's dive right into this. Right now, in the heart of Delhi, there's a profound and honestly pretty dangerous form of protest unfolding. It's a method that has literally reshaped the geography of India in the past. And today, it's putting the life of a globally recognized innovator on the line. We are talking about Sonam Wangchuk, an environmental activist and education reformer whose current, desperate stand is forcing us to examine a really high-stakes situation. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack exactly what is happening right now and why the empty stomach remains one of the most potent political weapons in the world's largest democracy.
To really get a grip on the gravity of this situation, here's our game plan. We'll be looking at 1. The 19-day fast, 2. A history of empty stomachs, 3. The mechanics of moral pressure, 4. The grammar of anarchy, 5. The medical reality, and finally, 6. Weighing Wangchuk's protest. So, let's get into Section 1. The 19-day fast, saltwater, and high stakes. 19. That is the number of days Sonam Wangchuk has survived on absolutely nothing but salt water. I mean, just think about that for a second. For nearly 3 weeks, no food whatsoever has passed his lips. This isn't just some symbolic skipped meal, you know? It is a massive, profound physical endurance test, and it's playing out in real time. Now, if you aren't already familiar with him, Sonam Wangchuk is a highly respected 59-year-old engineer, educationist, and climate activist from Ladakh. He's actually won the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award. But during this current fast, he has already lost more than 9 kilograms. He is out there protesting in support of a satirical online movement. It's called the Cockroach Janta Party, and he's demanding accountability over alleged examination paper leaks, while also pushing for much broader systemic education reforms. He is literally putting his body on the line to force a real conversation about the future of students in India. Moving right along to Section 2, a history of empty stomachs, changing the map. While protesters around the world might block roads or hold massive marches, and obviously Indians do those things too, India actually has this incredibly unique, deeply ingrained legacy of political fasting. Just to give you some context, back in 1948, Mahatma Gandhi undertook a 5-day fast that helped restore communal peace in Delhi. Fast forward to 2011, and Anna Hazare's 13-day fast practically captured the entire national imagination over the issue of anti-corruption. And of course, there's the staggering case of Iram Sharmila, who refused food for 16 years to protest security legislation. She only survived because she was force-fed by the state. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer unmatched power of this tactic. Take a look at 1952. A man named Poti Srimalu fasted, demanding a separate state for Telugu speakers. He fasted for 58 days. And tragically, on the 58th day, he died. The public outrage and unrest that followed were so intense that it completely forced the government's hand. Prime Minister Nehru relented, which led to the creation of Andhra State, and that ultimately triggered the linguistic remaking of India itself. The historian Ramachandra Guha hit the nail on the head when he noted that one man's empty stomach had literally redrawn the map of the world's largest democracy. That brings us to Section 3, the mechanics of moral pressure, awakening the conscience. So, how does this actually work? Well, by definition, a hunger strike is highly performative. As anthropologists point out, the target isn't just the state, it's the public. The protesters' physically weakening body becomes this visceral, undeniable demonstration of the alleged cruelty of the state. The whole idea is to shock the public audience into a state of outrage, and that public outrage is what applies unbearable pressure on authorities who might otherwise just ignore the issue. In a world pretty much driven by self-interested politics, a hunger strike stands out precisely because it's the ultimate act of self-sacrifice. It draws on this ancient moral significance that you can find deep in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. But it was really Mahatma Gandhi who took those ancient religious traditions of voluntary self-denial and completely transformed them into a modern political weapon. He famously insisted it wasn't blackmail at all, but rather an act of suffering meant to awaken the conscience. However, we have to recognize that it is a highly precarious form of protest. Why? Because it relies entirely on the public actually caring. If the audience doesn't respond, the striker is essentially just starving in a vacuum.
Which leads right into Section 4, the grammar of anarchy, the critic's warning. Historically speaking, there's actually an incredible philosophical clash between two of India's greatest figures when it comes to this tactic. On one side, you have Gandhi, who saw the fast as the last resort in place of the sword, a deeply moral act of awakening. But on the other side, there's B.R. Ambedkar, the chief architect of India's constitution. Ambedkar was deeply skeptical of fasting in an independent India. He argued that once democratic constitutional avenues actually exist, methods like civil disobedience and fasting have to be abandoned. He famously warned that continuing those methods was nothing less than a grammar of anarchy.
And modern political philosophers have totally echoed Ambedkar's warning. Take Pratap Bhanumetha, for instance. He argues that these protests can easily become deeply coercive and incredibly politically polarizing. Think about it. When a fast is undertaken by someone who holds immense moral authority, it puts the government in an absolutely impossible bind. It bypasses normal democratic debate, and as Metha notes, it practically amounts to blackmail. It forces incredibly complex policy decisions to be made under the immediate threat of a tragedy, rather than working things out through legislative consensus.
Let's look at the physical toll in Section 5, the medical reality, a biological ticking clock. A hunger strike is not just political theater, guys. It is a very real biological ticking clock. After just 2 weeks without any food, the human body enters a critical phase. Step 1, the body quite literally begins cannibalizing itself. It breaks down muscle tissue right alongside fat just to keep the lights on. Step 2, this process causes severe and incredibly dangerous electrolyte disturbances. And step 3, those imbalances can trigger fatal heart rhythm complications at literally any moment. Even reintroducing food too quickly later on carries huge medical risks. This grim reality means that every prolonged fast inevitably transforms from a protest into a full-blown medical emergency. And this biological reality is exactly what drove the recent events in Wangchuk's case. As his health visibly deteriorated, the Delhi High Court explicitly directed authorities to monitor him. Consequently, Delhi police, acting on medical advice, stepped in and shifted Wangchuk to a government hospital. Now, as you might imagine, this move was highly contested. His supporters allege he was taken away completely against his wishes, disrupting his protest. Meanwhile, the authorities firmly maintain that the intervention was absolutely necessary to protect his life.
So let's wrap this up in Section 6, weighing Wangchuk's protest, a polarizing figure.
You really can't grasp the full weight of this protest without understanding the man behind it. Wangchuk is a towering figure in India. He founded SCMOL, which completely transformed student-centric education in remote Himalayan regions. He famously invented the ice stupa, artificial glacier, an internationally recognized sustainable technology to help high-altitude communities survive climate change. I mean, he even inspired the character Funsuk Wangdu in the massive hit movie 3 Idiots. Many locals view him as a vital, nonpartisan voice for Ladakh. But as his activism has grown, so has his friction with the state. In fact, during earlier protests advocating for constitutional safeguards for Ladakh, authorities actually detained him under the National Security Act, accusing him of contributing to unrest. Wangchuk strongly denied those allegations, stating his protests simply reflect public frustration and he's only ever appealed for peace. So the crucial point is we are left with a fiercely balanced and highly contested picture here. In his favor, supporters point to his completely peaceful, nonviolent activism. They argue his immense moral pressure draws desperately needed attention to vital education and environmental reforms that authorities might otherwise just ignore. But from his critics, the pushback is equally strong. They argue his hunger strikes unfairly coerce the government and bypass proper constitutional avenues. Furthermore, policy analysts point out that while his ideas are incredibly inspiring, some of his demands, like extensive constitutional changes, are administratively and economically difficult to actually implement at scale. Ultimately, much of this debate isn't really about his intentions or his brilliant technical achievements. It's a profound disagreement over his methods and the exact role of public protest. Which leaves us with this final, overarching thought to ponder. Sonam Wangchuk's incredible sacrifice is unfolding right now, testing the boundaries of the state, the public conscience, and his own biology. Will his protest ultimately force the systemic education reforms he's demanding? Or will it simply test the enduring, precarious power of one of India's oldest political rituals? It's a profound question of morality, democracy, and the literal limits of the human body. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and we will definitely keep watching as this critical story continues to develop.